Hi, folks, and welcome to another Wednesday episode. So I have my co-host with me, Marco, and I have two other guests. I have a third one. He will join us in 30 minutes, and the topic is the upcoming elections in Portugal and how it is to defend Israel in Portugal. So it's a tricky territory from many angles, but we have here brave people who are willing to defend their ideas despite the backlash. I'm very proud to have people who stand for Israel. Not only on social media, but on a daily basis, I'd say. I have Luciano Waldman, who was with us, I think, a month ago. He is the man behind the Lisbon Jewish Community Center. And I have Sónia Mendes Silva, the superwoman behind the Facebook group Zion Missão Portugal. And we have Romeu just joining. Right on time, Romeu. I was just about to say to join in 30 minutes, but you just contradicted me. I like that.
I managed to arrive earlier than I expected. Hello, everyone.
Good stuff. And I have Romeu, who is a part of the Association Portuguese for Israel. He is now based in Madrid. Very happy. I just saw on the internet, so it's going very well when it comes to romance. So well done, Romeu. But we're not here to talking about Romeo romance. We are talking here about the upcoming elections in Israel and what we can do, say, from Zionist perspective. Is there any option? Is there any party that we can support? Or there's no hope? I think it's a quite tricky territory, as I said on the beginning. Myself, I received the voting envelope the other day. I don't know where is it, and I kind of don't regret it. But maybe after this discussion, I will look for it. I don't know. We'll see. I will tell you at the end of the day. I don't know where is it. Maybe the cat has it, but maybe I need to look for it. Maybe my guests will let me know that there is some hope. But we'll see. So if you are into this topic, stay around for the next 90 minutes. I appreciate it if you click those three buttons below. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you enjoy what we do here, and share with someone who is into this kind of conversations and haven't followed us so far. But before I start engaging with my dear guests, I would like to ask Marco, who is in Jerusalem, the capital of the road, as he says.
Indeed.
Marco, how is it going?
And the capital of Israel, let nobody be any doubt. First of all, the capital of Israel and hence the capital of the world.
How is tourism back in Israel, by the way?
It's beginning to come back. I've had a few groups recently, so there is a bit of movement. Things are certainly picking up. The more courageous tourists are making their way to Israel, the more committed. So yes, things are looking up, and of course we look forward to more. And perhaps our guests this evening should entertain the idea of booking a flight, and I shall be happy to show them around.
Yeah, guys, if you want to make it to Israel, all you need to do is get into Marco's hands. You have the right guidance, the proper insight.
Indeed,
so
a one-way ticket. You won't want to return.
That can sound a bit scary, but
are tourism services working regularly for people who wish to do tourism? Or?
Yes, they are. Yes. The flights are back. There have been some interruptions due to our neighbors, but generally speaking, the airport is functioning, and the hotels are working. The restaurants are full. The cafes are full. The old city is increasingly busy. The bazaar is open. The shuk is open. So. It's safer than most urban centers in Europe. Let me be frank. Even with all our problems, it's a safer place than the great urban centers in Europe, which, alas, have become unrecognizable in the past 20 years.
Right. So let's jump into the Portuguese topic. So I suggest that we go directly to the government. No, before we talk about the parties, I would like you to provide us with an assessment on how the government have managed the relationship with Israel. Was there any change in the last year or so? And is there any signs of improvement, say, in the next mandate, in case they are re-elected, which seems to be the case according to the poll? So let me start with Sónia. You are new here. I think people are very eager to hear from you. So would you share your evaluation of the government when it comes to how they relate to it?
I'll be absolutely sincere with you. I had decided to vote for this government for the next elections, Democratic Alliance, because I think that until 1 week ago, some days ago, they managed to have some balance here in this topic. So the government never hostilized, never reproached Israel openly, the Israel actions and points of view. But 4 or 5 days ago, I'm not sure, a fact changed completely my mind, and therefore I must say that I will not vote for no one in the next elections. What happened? Well, a proposal from the Netherlands regarding the agreement of association Israel European Union. That's an agreement to boost the economic cooperation between Israel and the economic European Union by reaching a certain legal status in order that the cooperation can be ameliorated. And so what was the proposal? To review, this is a metaphor to me, to suspend that agreement between Israel and the European Union. So, and our government, this, in words of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, agreed with this proposal from the Netherlands. And so I was very angry. And as you could see, perhaps in our Zion Missão Israel group, and to me, they are out of thought in these moments.
Yeah, I'm not surprised given the fact that this government is very much Brussels orientated. So whatever comes from Central Europe, they will follow like a sheep. At least that's what I have perceived, for bad and for good. Mostly for bad, in my opinion. But that doesn't constitute any shock.
Sorry, Vitor, but it was not a Brussels proposal. It was from the Netherlands. So we could act differently if we decided so. The government could say it could keep neutral, or could wait for another developments, because we are at this moment in a very sensitive point regarding the war, the hostages, and we know the pressure, the amount of pressure Israel has in its own shoulders, and we could wait with legitimacy. But we, as good students, we love to do that as Portuguese. We run to accept and to say, okay, we support that proposal. And to me, this is absolutely wrong and cannot be acceptable for an Israel supporter.
Yeah, 100%.
It's simple as Romeu. That. Moral quandaries don't apply here.
Yeah, 100%. Romeu, your thoughts? Would you relate to Sonia's view, or do you have a better understanding of the government position, or a more positive?
No. To be fair, I think I understand Sonia and I agree. Let me disclose first that I'm a member of one of the parties running for the elections. I'm a member of Iniciativa Liberal, which is a center-right party, typically supportive of this government.
And Romeu, sorry to cut you off. Can I also mention that you are a former member of PP, okay, which is part of the government. I think it's good to have both facts on the table.
Yeah. So yes. So I'm in the area of the center right. Yeah. Well, what I've seen, like Sonia said, was I was also a bit disappointed with this government, especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Paulo Rangel. I was hoping he would be more supportive of Israel, and he was a bit sounded like could be from the Socialist Party, and then sometimes a little bit engaging in some hostile things that were promoted by other countries. So that was a bit disappointing. But I want to make sure it is noted that typically we see the party that goes into government tends to moderate. So the Socialist Party towards Israel in government was kind of center, and the PSD, the right, also moved towards like the left, towards center. And I do think most people in the center right and the right are more supportive of Israel, and people in the left, they now are it's very divided, so they're against Israel. So when you have many people like in the parliament or local assemblies, you will see this split very clearly, the right tending to support Israel and the left against Israel. The Socialist Party now, if I'm not wrong, they say they want to recognize the state of Palestine. They never did it in the last 8 years while they were in government. And now they are saying it's in their platform, it's in their program, they want to do it. So I also feel a bit disappointed with the center-right government, but I want to make sure people understand that if they don't vote for an alternative or for the most pro-Israel alternative, they are allowing for people to vote and to give power to the left, which wants to recognize Palestine and to be openly against Israel. So I think we have to think about it and make choices which are always not ideal in politics, and see what we prefer. But I agree that it was a bit disappointing, this government towards Israel. I was expecting more support. For instance, also with the hostages. When we had October 7 and we had Portuguese hostages in the hands of Hamas, we saw that the government increased the speed to give citizenship for one of the hostages that was in the process of getting it. And they gave it to this hostage. And I never saw our prime minister or the foreign minister talking about the Portuguese hostages with Hamas. That was very shocking. So it seemed to me that it was worse than with the previous government, that at least did something a little bit to help. So yeah, that was shocking. I think different parties have different positions. Maybe you want to go deeper into that more later in the debate. I don't want to steal time from other people.
Yeah, we go for that in a few minutes. I just want to pass the ball to Luciano, who I think he has the worst opinion of the government between the three of you. Am I correct in saying that, Luciano?
You're right. But more than that, I want to say some things to start with the government of Portugal. I think the moment what they try to show is empathy for the Jewish people from Portugal. So as a good example, Pedro Delgado Alves, he's like the vice of the group of the parliament of the Socialist Party. He started to reach out the Jewish community. The first thing, yesterday, Rodrigo Saraiva from Iniciativa Liberal, it's from the party of Romeu, have talked actually with the Israelis. They try to show kind of empathy to Jewish community and also to Israelis. It's funny also for me because more than that, Paulo, Paulo Rangel, was in Israel. He met actually the family of the hostage people, and then when he back to here, he say, "I defend this the solution of two states," So it's kind of, I try to show I'm very impartial. I I have empathy for the both sides, and I think sometimes actually you need to break a little bit that. So I must say, it's I know people don't really like what they're gonna say now, but the only party actually now that really defend Israel and support Israel is Chega. That's the truth, and you can see that with Truth Pedro Frazão. He's openly support the Jewish community and the Israel. But more than that, he made part actually of Alpi. So it means like, it's the only party actually say it very clearly which side they are. And I think people here in Portugal like to catalog people and say, oh, they are far right, and no, these people is crazy, all these things. But I must to say, maybe it's time actually to change things here in Portugal actually, and give to Portugal a different reality. You don't like, but you need to change, And for the Jews and for Israel, I must say Chega is the best, or is the best option. More than that, I would say something else, something is the reality you talk about in Israel. It's very far away from here. Something else, the reality of the Jews here, because we suffer also. When people coming to the Jewish street and do graffitis, and when people place all over the city posters and of a terrorist people, and they actually allow it people, because here in Portugal you have a law and say if you do a political propaganda, you can do panels in the streets, and we have huge panels pro-Palestine here. So something is wrong, no? So something is behind that. So when actually, the Socialist Party, the PS, come to talk to us, we know very clearly actually what's the opinion of them, And also, more than that, usually it's crazy, because usually when you have Socialist Party and you have Communist Party in in some in some departments in the government, oh, believe me, if you say you are Jewish, and especially if you are Israeli, oh, they're not gonna prove and they're not gonna help you at all. So I must say, because I suffer with my skin actually every day about these parties, because we deal with them, we talk with them. I must say, listen, everyone, it's paka talk too much, promise things from here to the moon, but on this day is actually the only part is Chega. That's the truth.
Sónia and Romeu, I know you want to jump on Luciano because of Chega, but we will talk about Chega in a bit. I know you are eager to reply back.
I don't want to jump on Cristiano, yes, but I want to comment on that. Yes.
Let me just close the government topic before we talk about Chega. I know you are eager to do that. I'm eager to do that myself, but let me just close the government topic before we move on. So at the moment, for people who are not aware of, the Lisbon mayor is also PST, which is the cover of the current government. Do you see any difference between the local power in Lisbon and the government? And if there is a difference, is there any sign of hope coming from Lisbon, the central city, Romeu?
Well, what I've seen from the mayor of Lisbon, and it's normal because he has Jewish family, is that seems very pro-Israel and very connected to the Jewish community. I don't know up to what point individual people do influence the full government. I hope it's a sign that in the future, if Mayor Moedas becomes prime minister, he'll also be very, very pro-Israel. I don't think I've a lot to add on that. I was more connected to the politics of Oeiras, local politics in Oeiras, another city. There, the mayor did, for instance, vote in favor of condemning the massacre of October 7 and invited the ambassador of Israel to visit to show his condolences and lit up the city hall in Oeiras with the colors of the Israeli flag and put up the Israeli flag in solidarity. So I think that was a nice gesture. I didn't see so many more things happening there. I think I was suggesting that that Oeiras could be a twin city with Tel Aviv, but someone mentioned that capitals have a rule that they must be twinned with each other, and so it would be Lisbon because Portugal recognizes Tel Aviv as capital of Israel. So Oeiras wouldn't be allowed to do that.
Romeu, I wouldn't dare to say that Tel Aviv is the capital of Israel in front of Marco, just for your...
No, It is not. It's a fact that it is not, right? But for the Portuguese government or Portuguese law, I don't know, they think they make up that Tel Aviv is the capital, and so they only let like Lisbon between with Tel Aviv and stuff like that.
Indeed,
I fully
indeed.
agree. It's not. We cannot just make up capitals, right? We
No,
cannot.
no, no.
Another
But
country.
you're in good company because most of Europe does follow that line. Although some countries now have taken the initiative, such as Hungary, I believe Slovakia, and a number of South American countries are in the
I think it's
process
like
of
Kosovo
moving.
also, no? That recognizes
I believe you're right.
Jerusalem.
Yes, yes, they're moving their embassy to Israel, to Jerusalem. Sorry, which de facto is the capital. It's undeniable that all the institutions, with the exception of the Ministry of Defense, are in Jerusalem. So, I mean, if the Portuguese and the other Europeans want to live in a sort of make-believe world, which I believe they are, to be honest, they do live in a make-believe world, and this will have also repercussions on the home front, because all is not well in Europe at the moment, as you well know. The societal turmoil is being underplayed. And I would just like to mention an episode the day before yesterday, the speech by the British Prime Minister, where he has finally realized the danger of immigration. And he basically took his cue from Nigel Farage, who's been banging on about this, justifiably so, for many years. So something is changing. The chickens are beginning to come home to roost. And this will also extend to Palestinism as well. People will understand the real nature of the beast in due course. It may take some severe civil unrest for this to happen in Europe. It's already happening. It's not being reported in the mainstream media, but I receive a lot of information from many different countries about the riots being caused by certain groups of immigrants, which I think you'll understand which groups. They're not Buddhists from Nepal, and I think it's pretty clear which groups I'm referring to. So something is happening. People are losing faith, and they will lose faith even more. What you're telling me about Portugal seems to be very much in line with what is happening in the rest of Europe, where generally there is greater, let's say, sympathy. Let's use the word sympathy for Israel on parties to the right of on the political spectrum. So that seems to be a recurrent theme, and you confirm that.
Yes,
Yeah,
in Portugal,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. Right. The interesting thing is that had one said the same thing, done the same analysis maybe 40 or 50 years ago, Israel did have significant support also on the left. For example, in the post-war period, of course, the Holocaust had a certain impact, but there was also another image of Israel as being a socialist country. And also, the nobody mentioned Palestine. When I was growing up, when the attacks were being carried out against Israel, they were referred to as Arab guerrillas. Okay, so the language is changing, the narrative has been shaped, and unfortunately, it has been allowed to take hold. Of course, it has been sponsored. Nothing happens in a vacuum. We know that great resources have been dedicated to this, especially by the oil-rich Arab countries, and they have borne fruit. The problem is that this, as I maintained in other webinars, Palestinism is a retrovirus which will ultimately weaken the immune system of European countries as well, because ultimately speaking, it is jihadis in double-breasted suits or pretending to be Che Guevaras. It's an excellent public relations exercise, but ultimately it's there to sow havoc within European societies.
Marco, I'm not sure if you are aware, but we actually have a Palestinian candidate for these elections for the Portuguese parliament running with
No,
Bloc
I'm
de
not aware.
Esquerda, the
No.
left bloc. And she used to work for the Palestinian embassy or diplomatic mission in Lisbon because it's not considered a country. From where she was expelled, she was fired. and she openly supports the October 7 massacre. She declared multiple times to the press, to the TVs, to the radios, that everyone in all the she said, not all the Palestinians support Hamas, but everyone supports this attack. Everyone supports this attack led by Hamas, and then she said they support resistance by every means possible.
Of course.
Very openly, no limits. She declared this. She was invited after this to run for member of parliament by Lisbon. She was already before a candidate for the European Parliament.
Right. This comes as no surprise to me, because the PA Authority, the allegedly moderate wing of the Palestinist movement, I'm aware of what they show on the media, what they teach in the textbooks. So this is basically a school for terrorism in any case. So Hamas are just reaping the fruits of these decades of incitement. There's no essential difference between Hamas and the PA. They are, essentially speaking, two sides of the same coin.
We have a question here from Daniel Hortz. Maybe Sónia, you can answer. I think it's in relation to that candidate from the left bloc who openly supports the October 7. So in Daniel's estimation, that's an incitement to terrorism. Would you subscribe Daniel's words, Sónia?
Of course, from the standpoint of that potential deputy, of course, and from Bloc de Esquerda, the party that supports her, I wouldn't say an incitement to terrorists in such a definitive way, but I think it only shows how they have their own narrative about this situation and this conflict, and they are totally Manichaeans, you know. They cannot recognize and only see positive aspects from the other side, from the Israeli victims, from the Jewish people. And so a Bloc de Esquerda and the rest of the left wing is deeply convinced that they are making the best step possible, that they are being Che Guevara's, as Marco said, that they are defending the poor ones, the people of the Palestine and the oppressed people. And so with these vests, with this imagetic, they consciently choose these deputies, these people, with this sort of speeches. The same thing happened with the Socialist Party, with the rapper. Not the same, but it is. We can compare the situation. So they have their own narrative. They are Manichaeans. There's the good part, Palestinians and all its supporters, and the bad one, the devilish Israel state and its supporters. And so they are absolutely sure of their steps. They have conscious choices, and so of course they're not eligible for any citizen that really supports Israel and the right side of this problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's one thing I would give them. I will give them some credit. At least they are clear. They don't hide. They are not playing a game. Let's give them that. They're not
credit where
hiding,
credit's due. Credit where credit. They're honest anti-Semites. Honest anti-Semites, which we have to admire them to a certain extent, instead of hiding behind a certain language and pretending to be nice. Because on the other hand, we have the necrophiliacs who love dead Jews. Okay, everybody was showing solidarity on October the 7th. They were lighting up the town halls, but de facto, when they promote anti-Israel policy, they are promoting genocidal ideology, and this is what we really need to hammer home. This is what Palestinism wasn't born to accommodate another political entity. Palestinism is quite clear. It wants the elimination of the Jewish people in the Middle East and beyond, because it is an expression of jihadi ideology. That is it. That is its metaphysics.
Yeah, talking of vouchers, no, I just think of Antonio Guterres here, who is a member of the Socialist Party. So let me bring him to the conversation, and I'm sure Luciano is eager to comment on that gentleman. So, how much of a nightmare if the Socialist Party, which in my opinion is a wolf covered with a sheep outfit, how much of a nightmare would that be if those guys will get back into government and they will be heavily supported by Guterres in the UN? How much of that is a nightmare in your understanding, Luciano?
My understanding, it's amazing because now if they want to recognize actually Palestine, for me is a totally failure of actually of the government. Why? Because after October 7, actually we need to reflect and think about Israel, about the Middle East, about the changing of the world, about the end of the Western world, about immigration. We have a lot of thoughts, but actually to recognize the Palestinian states is to say, you see all the bad things you did, all the terrorism, all like the crazy things you did. Now, I grant you with, with this recognition. And for me, it's crazy because actually after October 7, okay, so the Palestinians subject back and people talking about, they have explosion of this anti-Semitism. They're talking about more and more about the recognition of the Palestinian people, about who is the Palestinians and so on, so on, so on. No problem with that. Everyone can define and feel whatever they want. Identity is something very colorful. We don't care. But in the second hand, how people jump on that, the thing is okay, maybe let's think and even also judge and say to them, listen, what you did is very wrong. People are actually cheering about the things the Palestinian people did, and say Mortago is for me is a good example. Now I know it's a dead party, but then talking about this woman that actually have trying to be part of the parliament. So she gave to Mortagua a kafia, okay? And then Mortaga did, it's funny because they don't like the capitalism, they don't like Instagram, they don't like Facebook, but actually they promote and pay very well actually Instagram and Facebook to promote themselves. And what you say, what they say in there, Palestinian people will win. They're gonna win. So I must say, how, why, and I think this show actually in the end how much the Socialist Party is not prepared actually to be in the to be in the to win and be part of the government, be the government in the end. Sometimes, so it's better sometimes to be impartial. So no to here, no to there. Neutral, it's fine. But then Gutierrez is a good example for that too. He need to please everyone, and then he say, "Oh yeah, poor people, they die in 7 October." But then, you see comments.
It's worse. He justified it. He said it didn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah,
that was absolutely outrageous. If you'd only been just a little bit solidarity and be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Outrageous. I agree.
It was evil. It was evil.
I think this is the point. But also, I want to say something else about that, about to be impartial. Like Moedas, you talk about Moedas before. For sure, what Moedas think. But it doesn't mean they do many things there. Because they know the price actually, of to do something, to do action, and all the criticism actually they need to suffer after that. So as I said before, if the Socialist Party win, it's going to be a terrible thing for not just for the Israelis but also for the Jews, because it's a play. Oh, I like you, but in the end, we know very clear who they support.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Chega. The great moment is arriving. For Luciano, be prepared because I think Romeu and Sónia have a totally different view from you. As I said, I lost the envelope, so I don't have skin on the game. I'm completely neutral here. Maybe at the end I will pick a party, but I lost the envelope, and that's not something I came up with. It's a fact. I don't know where is it. Maybe it's between some of those books, but it seems that the right wing is more with Israel than the left. That we cannot deny that. But there's a division among the right wing, even in the States, like the likes of, say, Tucker Carlson. He's not for Israel. Even the new right wing of Joe Rogan, they are not for Israel. So there are many people on the right, or even Alex Jones. I don't think Alex Jones is for Israel. He was never for Israel. Come on. But there are people who think that. Like there are people who believe that Alex Jones is Zionist. Like, do you understand in English? I think you don't, because he's clearly a critic of Israel. So I would like you, Romeu, to situate Shega, when it comes to the Israeli conflict, taking consideration how the mainstream right wing have shifted, especially since the war.
Right. First, I would like to start to paint the broader picture, which is, I think we have politicians and parties that try to follow some standard political principles and positions, ideologies. And then we have people and parties that are grifters and that are populists, meaning they will do what is easier to get votes, what is most popular. And when we talk about these figures on the right wing that are against Israel or shifting to be against Israel and even openly anti-Semitic, I think this is because these people never really had strong morals or ideology. They see it's easy to be against Israel, to be against the Jews, that it gives them views and money. They are earning money from each view, and they go for it. So these people are very dangerous, and in the parties, we also have populist parties. Regarding Chega specifically, what we see, in terms of program, what they have on their platform, it is the most pro-Israel party. So on paper, they are, clearly. They are, for instance, the only party that has on their program that they support that Portugal moves its embassy to Jerusalem. There is no other party that has this kind of proposal. I'm not sure if they ever proposed it in the parliament. They also, I think they had some they supported Netanyahu and showed some support, strong support for Israel publicly. But at the same time, they're also the only party, or one of the few, that wants to ban kosher slaughter in Portugal. It was one of their first measures. I know it is not because they are concerned about animals, although they say it's because of concern for animals. They're not a pro-animal party. They are targeting Muslims because they say they are worried about animals, so they want to ban halal and kosher slaughter. They put all of it together. But as you can see, this kind of populism, it always also ends in trapping Jewish people. They have, or they used to have, nowadays, I don't know how much it has shifted, they used to have a very strong Nazi base. They had militants with Nazi tattoos going on to their events. In public, we have photos. And they had a strong Nazi base that was preventing them or making it very difficult for André Ventura and for his board to remain in power. They were voting against this, or trying to impose a more extremist view within Chega. And they forced Ventura to run like 3 times in a single day for president, because even though he was the only candidate, he needed a certain number of votes, and these very extreme people were trying to keep him down until he put some more radical people also in power with him. So I think we have to be a bit careful. Chega has had very pro-capitalist policies in their program, and then switched them to the fully opposite, and now wants to nationalize companies because they saw it was very theoretical or very hard to explain to people these kind of conservative policies, and then they just switched to socialist policies. I don't see a party that is like populist who doesn't bet on educating people, taking a strong stance that is educated towards Israel. I think if they see that their base or the people does not want to support Israel, they will switch it very easily because they are very focused on getting the maximum number of votes no matter what. They will try whatever extremist positions. They started by saying they wanted to ban gay marriage. They were saying they wanted to castrate pedophiles. And then, of course, they dropped the ban on gay marriage because gay people don't have anything against gay marriage. Most people don't care. So they dropped it. They saw it was not popular. And then they went with targeting gypsies, going against pedophiles, which are more popular things. I don't think I saw them really making like concrete proposals to support Israel on parliament. But on paper, on theory, on their original program, yes, they were the most pro-Israel party. I hope they will vote. They will be very pro-Israel, but I don't think they're very reliable on that because their character is populist. But of course, I don't think we should focus only on Chega. Let me just be very quick on the other parties. So Left Bloc and Communists, they are totally against Israel. Like there's no chance over there.
Romy, sorry to cut you off. We'll get into those parties in a bit. Right now, I want to focus on Chega. And I would agree with you. They are not known to stick to their word. They are volatile. They will go with the wind, and sometimes they get it right more than any other parties. And I give them that, but I can also recognize the pattern that they will stick to what is useful. So they're not really ideological. They will do what is convenient. Now, many parties do that, but Chega is very professional when it comes to this. But like my opinion of politicians is we also need to use them. And if they are the ones that are more pro-Israel, let's use them. Let's use them until we can.
Politicians are there to serve the people. That's the goal.
That's my perception. Would you relate to my comments, Luciano, when it comes to Chega, or do you think they are pro-Israel by default?
First of all, what Romeu said about the pro-Nazis and all these things is right. Like I'm really following like all the pages, and you can see very clear like they have like a very anti-Semitic like content. That's true. He's totally right. Like and also he's right about like if they want to fight Islam, and this is one of the biggest agendas of Chega, and they really want to fight Islam because they really believe this is going against the values of the Judeo-Christian, European white ideology, like so for sure in the end Judaism have an impact on that. That's true. But in the second hand, I need to say two things. First, as I said before, Pedro Frazão, he's really pro-Israel, and he really like his device of like Chega. So like he actually do
but
things.
Careful, he's the one that proposed banning kosher slaughter in Portugal. He's a veterinarian.
I know that, but he have been in the demonstrations. He have been like part of like many things as Alpi, like so. It things I agree with you, But the thing is, I as also like Vitor say, like sometimes is the situation, and then you need to play because then like further to have a dialogue, and then you can say, listen, maybe you can, make a kind of regulation. Have a dialogue, like it's on the agenda, right? But then you have a place to talk. If you want to listen to my opinion about like all the parties, I need to say, actually, I was persecuted by the Communist Party, and that's the truth, so and then like when I never have been persecuted with Chega, I never have actually anything that projects and talks and emails and all the things I have talked to them, nothing. But then like when you talk about the left, oh my god, projects, dialogues, emails, everything was sent. We try like simple things, monuments, to try to talk about, let's do a panel, we'll talk about like I give an example. This is very nice. To have Itzhak Abarbanel, one of the greatest philosophers of Portugal. Okay, he was responsible for the treasure. He was one of the first humanists of Portugal. Then we come with the idea.
Of Israel?
Let's do, huh?
You mean of Israel?
Abarbanel? No, here in Lisbon, we say let's do a panel team. Okay.
Can you repeat the name of the person that you were talking about?
Itzhak Abarbanel. Isaac Abarbanel.
Okay. It's a person from Israel, one of the philosophers from Israel.
No, he's Portuguese. He born
It's
here
Portuguese.
he born here in the 16th century. Okay,
Oh, I'm
15th
sorry.
century.
I didn't.
Sorry.
I'm not educated. So.
And then we come with the idea, and the person, I'm not going to say the name of the person, but the person who was responsible for the department for that was for the Socialist Party. And then I start to talk to this person, and then the person realized I'm Israeli. The situation changed at all. They stopped like to answer my emails. They say, listen, they didn't they have authorization to do that. And then you see more and more after October 7, like an explosion of panels of flags of Palestine and everything. Listen, this guy born here in Lisbon, in the Judea of Lisbon, and they think that's not legitimate to have. So if this kind of teeny tiny things of persecutions happen because the person behind the project is from Israel because he's Israeli, and in fact I'm Israeli, that's fine. But then, I don't see this from Shega. Sorry to say that, this is the thing, this is the truth. And the only part that actually in the end say, okay, I'm gonna support you, Shega. So let's dance with them and let's see what happens. But I think we need to stop to be impartial in Portugal. This partiality is annoying already. Some for 1 year I didn't get any kind of invitation for any university and any school. You know why? And I know the people. You know why? Because they say, I'm afraid of my students. This is the kind of things you want? Because people say, no, people not actually able to listen like the different ideas because they're afraid. So the majority of the politicians here in Portugal is like that. They have no opinions about anything. They say, no, I like you. Let's hear. I want to listen to your opinion. They don't do anything. That's the truth. No one actually have strong opinions for anything. So people need to change. Don't like Chega. You know what? Maybe it's not the best actually party we have, but die is enough. Let's change. Let's give the chair to someone like to do something else. Maybe things can change. People are afraid. I'm afraid of change too. It's not easy like to change your reality. It's a challenge for everyone. But at least you know more than that. If Portugal all the time like a goal, like as a good student, as Sonia was saying before, maybe it's a little bit good to be a revolt once and say, listen, what's happening in the European Parliament is not really what I'm aligned. I don't like the ideas there actually, and then actually the woke ideas is very strong. They say, "Oh, we support Israel," but then you see all the time like actually again and again like any kind of like a discourse against Israel. So it's not logical for me. I need to say that it's not logical for me. So I think in the end, like we need a change, and this change, thank you God, in my side.
Apologies, I was kicked out. As I said, I had some technological drama since I'm back from Africa, so maybe you'll stay with me for another week or so. Sonia, let me pass it to you. You don't seem to see Ventura as an ally of Israel. You don't really embody that cult of Ventura, do you?
I would rephrase. I don't really care. Vitor, that's the truth. Because to me, we cannot take the global ideology or idea, let's say, less noble of a party for a part or the contrary. What we see in Chega is something we never knew in our parliaments. They are absolutely shameful in their attitude, even inside the parliaments, namely with the deputies, with the women deputies. They have many claims of bad relationship, and this is to say the minimum, with women at the parliament. They made moves to Inês Sousa Real, a deputy of People, Animals and Nature. They are absolutely offensive. In their electoral campaign, they did some awful things to people on the streets. They made comments extremely wrong and unacceptable. And I think the attitudes that you have in a parliament also speaks for your ideals, also speaks for what you want to offer to a country. And regarding Chega, I do not trust them absolutely. I must say, nevertheless, that in our group, Zion Missão Israel, it is a very small group, a very humble one yet, but we have many friends from Chega. And I think it's very happy to have people from many sides, because in that sense, we have a common cause, that is Israel. But to run a country, no, I cannot give a country to a party that as even their speech on the immigration, for instance, is absolutely unacceptable. Chega.
Why?
Ask. Because
I'm an
Chega.
immigrant. I'm an immigrant. I ask him why.
Yes, because Chega as a sort of, persecution of people regarding their origin, their national origin. If you see fortunately, my background is in history. So when Chega appeared here in Portugal, I wanted to know more about, even because André Ventura had some sort of speech against the gypsy community that I think at that time was not well understood, because he only was saying that they should have the same rights and the same duties as all of the other Portuguese citizens. So I went to their program and I started to read, and I see this expression, this concept of assimilation. So the immigrants who come must be assimilated by our costumes, by everything we have. And historically, that is a very wrong concept, is a very reproachable concept, because it intends to deny the idiosyncrasies of other people, their specificities, their differentiation. And, Chega, even in parliament, they referred to the Turkish government as lazy, or the Turkish people as lazy. So they do not have boundaries. They do not have an acceptable behavior in our parliament and while speaking to people. Another thing is that in their program, at least I didn't see any word regarding Israel itself, perhaps about the capital, the embassy in Jerusalem, but regarding Israel itself, I didn't find anything in Chega program. I think Chega is a typical case of an anti-Islamic party that for that reason wants to join a popular cause amongst anti-Islamists. And believe me, it is very hard, even with such a small group as I have, to check out if we do not have people there treating immigrants as garbage, or supporters of xenophobic groups. So it is very hard to do that, because we want a clean defense of our ideals and of our pro-Israelism, but we do not match with certain behaviors, attitudes, and principles at all.
Sónia, I think that's a good point. I think one of the reasons why Chega is somehow with Israel is because they are anti-Islam. And that's just a coincidence. If, let's say, in 10 months, the two fights are not in the same arena, then they don't care. They are just with us because now we are being at war with Islam. If we are not at war with Islam, say in 1 year, then they will turn their back on the Jews. It's just necessary. So I think it's something, how to say, it's just a circumstance. It's not something that is on their core. It's just happening because things are going that way. So that's my understanding as well. So if you don't mind, we're going to move
Can
further.
you just allow me to say just a thing, because I forgot. Not in Portugal. I don't find it except on the stand-up party, ERGT. It is a small party that is not in parliament.
That's not a party. That's not a party. That's a bunch of animals. That's a
It is.
that's a part. Sorry. I have no
Yeah,
respect for this guy.
unfortunately, it
When
is a
people
party
say,
and
sorry,
it's
sorry, sorry.
running.
When
It
people
is
say,
running in these elections.
when
But
people
the
say that,
leader,
yeah,
the leader is a former judge, obviously expelled from his order. But he praises Hitler publicly in the
yes,
social media. So we have, even in the whole world, we have anti-Semitism in the left wings, but also in the right wings. That's undeniable. Okay, here in Portugal, it's perhaps less obvious, but in the world, we have anti-Semitism in both sides. And in Portugal, of course, I agree, the left wing is well, absolutely vocal in the anti-Semitism and also anti-Zionism.
yeah, yeah. You know, when it comes to Eric, I don't even consider them. I think they are not a political party. It's a it's something that it doesn't have no ability of of an association. So I don't have any respect for those guys. Like they are hooligans. That's what they are. It's a bunch of hooligans who think they're a political party. That's what they are. Like
But
they are very
but
similar
they are,
to
Vitor.
when
But
I
they
lived
are.
in when I lived in Hungary. There was also a Nazi party, and it's not Victor Orban. Victor Orban is the equivalent of Chega here in Portugal. Now there they have the actual Nazi party, which is like 1-2%. That's like act. Those are the guys who go out and fight. That's all they do for fun. They have no brain. All they do is look for trouble and enjoy that. That's all they do. So I don't even take them in consideration when it comes to the political discourse. We can briefly talk about them, but I want to give some space to Initiative Liberal since we have Romeu here, and I also want to share this with you guys and with the viewers. So Initiative Liberal is the only party uh, I shown public support on social media. Okay, I don't know if you remember, Romeo. I once said that I haven't voted, but I think I just disappointed Sónia there. But I'm a big fan of their financial views when it comes to the economic program and all that. That's where I give them a lot of merit. But when it comes to geopolitics, I don't really understand them. I don't like how they approach the cultural wars, and that's what makes me not a massive fan of their program. But I don't understand their geopolitics because, like you guys, and I'm just approaching you, Romy, with this. You are openly supporting Ukraine. When it comes to Israel, which is liberal democracy, why are you so hesitant?
So I would say Iniciativa Liberal in regards to Israel is very much aligned on the where PSD, CDS are. And so it is mostly tendenциally supportive of Israel, but mostly in a discreet way. It does vote in favor of Israel in parliament and meets with the Jewish community, Israeli ambassador, etc. But publicly, it doesn't really show off on that. It's a bit scared of confrontation on that topic.
And why is
I
that?
agree. I think it's because it's a hard topic. It's very, very complicated and very nuanced. It doesn't have easy answers. It would be so much easier if you were populist and we could just say these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and everything would be.
Excuse me, Romeo.
Okay.
Excuse me, Romeo. Where do you see the nuance in this question? Let me put
Where
you
do
on
I
the
see the
spot.
nuance?
Between Israel and Palestinism, where do you see the nuance? Because I'm curious.
I'm maybe not the typical member of PSD or Initiativa Liberal when it comes to Israel because I'm very supportive of Israel. Where do I see the nuance?
I'm not talking about the intersection of interests and on a moral level. Do you see equivalence between Zionism and Palestinism? Are they the same when we put both on the scales? Yeah.
No. I think Zionism is is first of all recognizing that the Jewish people are a people first, then that they have the same rights as every other people, which includes to having a country, to having security, self-determination in their homeland.
Right.
This is the basics.
Right.
And I do think that in terms of the Palestinians, they are not a people. I don't think there's a national identity there.
Right.
So it's not equivalent there.
Right. So I'm just trying to understand in the popular mind. So here's where we need to do the work in real terms, because this is what we see here is a manufactured cause, one that's manufactured for a specific reason. One can understand one's has economic interest. This, that,
there's multiple
the
reasons.
yeah,
Multiple interests.
we can understand that, of course, and indeed, the perceptions to a great extent changed because subsequent to the 1973 war, basically very often the Western economies were extorted. Oil was used as a weapon. But at a certain point, hard decisions really need to be taken because with oil, you become an addict. And at a certain point, once you become an addict, you lose yourself. And that's what's happening to Europe. Europe is losing itself.
But in this case, like, what kind of decision would you like to see Europe do? Because in my view, I do not see a Palestinian country as equivalent to Zionism and to Israel existing. But I also think that Israel would not benefit from absorbing millions of Arab Palestinians into their own country. So theoretically, if there could be security, it would be better if they were separated.
Well, you're not going to separate very much in this part of the world because we already have 20% within the pre-67 borders.
Right, I'm talking the others, right?
I know, but that was always a problem. The Arabs have been, in certain phases of Jewish history, a majority in the land of Israel. They became a majority because the Jews were forced to leave, or indeed some of the so-called Palestinians themselves are of Jewish origin. What most people don't know is that most of the so-called Palestinians are the product of a very recent migrations attracted by the Zionist enterprise itself. So we essentially need to say, this is what we need to hammer home, because Palestine is, in terms of ethnicity, people, is a fictitious construct. It is a fictitious phenomenon. So there's no real need to understand. Once you understand the nature of the beast, then you can make a diagnosis and find solutions. Arabs have no lack of political expression in the Middle East. No lack of territorial expression within the Middle East. Now, of course, you've spoken about the demographics of course, and to be perfectly frank, there have been in history transfers of populations. When you have a hostile population in a certain area, and a case in point is Europe in the post-World War II scenario, and India and Pakistan. So it's not inconceivable that hostile populations can be transferred with compensation. Now, that's not the case for many Arabs. Many Arabs are very happy to live here. And by the way, they're not all Arabs, okay? They are Arab-speaking. Many of the Christians here are not ethnically Arabs. They're Western Semitic of Aramean origin. So there's a lot of... The waters have been significantly muddied, okay? So you're asking me what I'd like to see. I'd like to see this recognized, that the land of Israel, essentially speaking, is the home of the Jewish people. But it doesn't exclude other ethnic groups, and we have some very successful and very well integrated ethnic groups, such as the Druze, for example. I'm not sure if you're...
Or such as the Christian Arabs. They're the most successful group in Israel. Not the Jews, it's the Christian Arabs.
That's right. No, I say that the Christians, of course, the Christians are a very successful minority in Israel. In Israel, they're a very successful minority. They're very integrated. I mention the Druze because they actually go to the army as the Jews do. Okay, so military service is obligatory for the Druze as well. The Christians, of course, are mostly very well integrated within the pre-67 borders. Beyond the 67 borders, the population has dwindled. A case in point is Bethlehem, where the population was 80% 40 years ago, prior to the Oslo Accords. Now it is around 10%. So this is when we talk about ethnic cleansing. This is the things we really need to set straight. Israel doesn't oppress other religious identities. It facilitates them as long as they show a capacity to communicate with the Jewish majority. Okay, and that's not necessarily an oppressive sense, an oppressive thing. Jews have integrated themselves all over the world. They have never clamored for any state in another place except for Israel. And here we see many the minorities, the successful minorities, weave themselves successfully into the fabric of Israeli society. They don't necessarily have to be Zionists, but they need to understand the basic language. But in reality, Christians have, it's a wonderful place for Christians to live, because they can express themselves. They have freedom of worship. The Christian population is growing within the pre-67 borders, of course. And indeed, many Muslims too are coming on in leaps and bounds. Nobody's forcing them to become Jewish. They can elevate their own religion to new heights. I think here we can have a real positive development within Islam itself. I think Islam can really flourish in a proper sense, not in a jihadi sense. Okay, because this is what the West is encouraging. The West is encouraging jihadi Islam, and jihadi Islam is a form of Islam that doesn't contemplate existence with other peoples. It has to, the other peoples have to dissolve within the greater Muslim body, and this has historically been the case, and this is the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood.
It's very weird, because actually Muslims in Europe, I think many are more radical than Muslims in the Middle East, in Arab countries. And sometimes they are shocked that they go to the, well, many Muslims from Europe went to fight for ISIS. And they are shocked to go to Turkey, for instance, and see Muslims drinking alcohol.
That's right. But Turkey is one of those. Turkey is a strange example. We have they have a prime minister who is, essentially speaking, an Islamist. He's an Islamist. He supports the Islamists in Syria now. Everybody's embracing this delinquent with blood on his hands, from President Macron and sadly President Trump too. And I don't think this is going to reflect very well on anybody who associates with these individuals. It's going to backfire at some stage.
Marco, sorry, just if I may comment, just to kind of finish the conversation where we were talking about what we want to see from European politicians, etc. From when I look back into history, I think it's very hypocritical from Europe not to acknowledge the way it solved the World War II, where it moved and deported millions of Germans to have kind of purely ethnical borders and to stop the disputes around borders and wars.
That's the worst. Sorry if I interrupt you. I was just presenting a worst case scenario for people that can live and know how to coexist with Jews in the land of Israel. There's no need for transfer. Okay. I'm talking about the terrorist element. Okay, those who have an agenda to destroy the Jewish state. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Right, but then you would also have, if we would not have a separate country for Palestinian Arabs, there would still be millions that would either be voting in Israel, no?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily, no.
Then they would be living in a separate citizenship status, no?
There are many possibilities. There could be there could be autonomy. They could vote elsewhere where they have political expression. There's no need for a Palestinian state which was conjured up in the 60s. The whole notion of Palestinian nationhood was conjured up in the 60s with one. But we don't have to apologize for this. I think people have to look this in the face. Palestinism was conjured up in the 60s for the sole reason of destroying a real state. Okay, and there's abundant. We have abundant. They say this themselves. Okay, there's no shortage of material which attests to this. You see, to talk about the demographics is to be blackmailed, essentially speaking. So to say there's no other possibility, there are plenty of possibilities. There are plenty of possibilities. There can be local autonomy. There can be population transfers. The sky's the limit. Okay, it's not as if there's some physical problem here that can't be resolved. It's a problem of goodwill. Yeah,
I think with the morals that we have as a Western civilization, I would like to see us try to move past the population transfers, because, for instance, we saw the how do you call it? The Gaza disengagement in 2005.
Yeah.
I think that was awful. That was ethnic cleansing of Jews executed by the
there
Israeli
you go.
government.
Well,
these people were not dangerous, right?
Far from
I
it.
would like to see other types of vaccinations. They should have stayed there.
But yes, but there is a qualitative difference here. The Jews in Gaza gave employment to the local Arabs. They behaved well. Right. They created an economy, not the opposite. Okay, those who are beholden to Palestinism want the destruction of another ethnicity. This people really need to. This is the point that people really need to understand. The two-state solution, this folly, which I never subscribe to, has been tried, and it has been proven to be a folly. Okay, people try to find excuses as to why it should be done, but it never works, and it never will work. I mean, it's like, for example, let's use a little thought experiment: getting a pedophile to be a babysitter. Okay, these are things that don't work, and they're not right. One has to recognize that there are qualitative differences. Okay. We could make the case for the Nazi people. I mean, Palestinism is influenced by Nazism. If we look at the genesis of Palestinist or ideology, it begins to a great extent with the Mufti of Jerusalem, with the Muslim. But this is in its DNA. There's no getting away from this. Okay. And it makes no historical sense, because because they try to portray themselves as an ancient population who use the endonym Palestinian. They never used that name. 80 years ago, it was the Jews who were the Palestinians in the British Mandate of Palestine. Okay, and it's very easy to falsify this, because the Druze simply, who have been here longer than most of the so-called Palestinians, have been here for a longer stretch of time. They're Israelis. They have chosen a positive identity without effacing their own age-old identity. They have their identity. No, the state of Israel does not impose an identity on them. The Israeli identity and Druze identity coexist happily. They coexist happily, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case for everyone. People can conserve an identity of living in peace and improving economically without necessarily being a Zionist. But to be an anti-Zionist and to work against the state, that I would consider to be unacceptable. You're going to have that problem in Europe as well, folks. You're going to increasingly see that you have populations that are working against the body of values which encapsulate your identity. Okay? This is the problem. You're going to have to face the music at some time, and it's going to have to and it's going to take hard decisions here. You're going to have to make these decisions.
Marco,
I beg your pardon?
No, I'm just saying it's happening. It's happening already.
Yes, it's before your very eyes. It's before your very eyes. Not every immigration is the same. Okay, there are immigration. There are groups that want, and they say it. And if you don't believe me, I can provide you evidence, documentary where they say it. Okay, it's not as if I'm making this stuff up. They say it in their own, they express this. We see their imams. They say, we're going to increase. We have children. We have 5 children, 5, 10 children. You have 1.1 on a good day. Okay.
I consider Douglas Murray the most brilliant mind, perhaps talking about these issues, about the Israel problem,
Yes,
and even about the West. And he's for years, he is claiming that the West must be defended, that the traditional West must preserve itself and stay far from the vulnerability that actually we are seeing nowadays. So this is not a new question. Simply, we are getting closer to the more dangerous moment.
We're
because
reaching
of
critical
course,
mass.
The globalized world brings us everything, and also this kind of
Yes, that's
issues.
true, but things don't happen on their own. Things don't. There are forces
Of
that are
course,
behind
of
that are
course.
behind this, and one has to take stock of this.
Okay, just to wrap up
Vitor,
on
you want to move
Initiative
back to
Liberal.
Portuguese politics?
Yes, yeah, just to wrap up on Initiative Liberal. I could cast my vote on Initiative Liberal if you guys would stand for Israel in the same way you stand for Ukraine. Now, and I would like to understand why is it so easy to stand for Ukraine and not for Israel, because it's also a tricky
It's
topic.
more
It's not
popular.
that
It's
easy.
more
It's
popular.
not. Yeah, but even the Ukrainian, let's say the Ukrainian side, it's not as popular as it was, and Initiative Liberal stays with Ukraine regardless of the backlash.
No.
But with Israel, it seems that they don't have the courage, and I would like to understand why. And I would even forgive you for embracing some of the woke elements. I forgive you for that. But I think you do a great job when it comes to economy. Like you are it's exemplary the way you present the problem and you come up with a solution. I think you can even give classes to some other countries in Europe. I'm very proud to say that as a Portuguese man. But when it comes to geopolitics and morals, you really let me down. So yeah, I'll have to leave it for another time.
On that
Let me
happy
talk about
note.
let me talk about another party here that is just emerging, and maybe I could get Sonia's view on that. And Sonia, we are just men here. I hope you don't get upset with me. I could vote on ADN just because of the looks of the leader, just because of her looks. But that's it.
I won't comment because, well, I cannot comment on that. Well, ADN has not a single word on Israel on their program too, and I understand that at a certain point, because small parties don't want to compromise. They do not want to write in their program something that can cut their interest to some part of the population. And
I have some information about this.
Liberal Initiative, I think, does the same, in my view, of course. So there are certain questions that they avoid to express in the political program, because that's a compromise, and also identifies them with certain sides of this battle, this question on Israel. And besides,
I think, Sonia, I think Joanna said at some point that she is for peace, which for me, it's a big bullshit when people say they are for peace. It's just a way not to fight. Like, I have relatives who are the same. When I ask them, how do you see the Israel-Palestine thing? How do you see India, Pakistan now, Russia, Ukraine, so on and so forth? They say, I'm for peace. Which for me, it's just...
you raise a very interesting point, because we could easily transpose this. I mean, suppose somebody in 1944 was to say, what's the difference between, who do you choose between the Allies and the Nazis? And they say we're for peace. It doesn't really chime, does it? Doesn't really. It should be the same case with the Israeli and Palestinist jihadist cause. This is what we expect. It should be the same. We shouldn't, in a sense, we shouldn't even be having this conversation.
Of course, we must stay with the true victims, and our moral principles should be absolutely clear on that. Who are the true victims? Who are the true offenders? Joanna, Vitor, I don't know if you remember, in the middle of the COVID, the pandemic, she was challenging people on restaurants because she didn't want to use the mask and because she didn't want the vaccination. And nowadays, her struggle is that she demands to pay with money. Is there big struggle in the stores?
Sonia,
I want to pay with the money, not with the
disagree.
card.
So, Sonia, I don't disagree with her view. I just think she's an attention seeker. That's my problem.
I've been trying to understand why you want to vote for her, and I admit she has my vote too after further research.
You may agree with me.
I'm convinced. You've convinced me with very sound arguments.
It depending on the date of the photo you are seeing, because she's changed a lot.
Presumably.
It depends.
Vitor, can I add some information about ADN in Israel?
I thought it was more about Joanna, so I'm a bit disappointed.
As you know, I'm not so interested in Joanna's qualities.
Vitor is Vitor is very convincing.
I am,
but
I just follow Vitor. I do.
So some years ago in Alpi, we did for one of the previous elections, we tried to reach out to the parties and get their positions on Israel. We sent a list of questions, and actually at the end was the only one to answer. They didn't have Juan at the time. They only had the president. I think it's the same president still. And I remember that the answers were a bit confusing, so I had to send them to confirm if they meant they wanted to support Israel or not, or like fight or be against Iran or not, because of the nuclear program and all this stuff. And they answered and they said, it's everything in support of Israel. That's it. every answer, every question in support of Israel. But nowadays, Joanna, I think, and at the end, they are very in that political spectrum of conspiracies, which typically tends to be against the West, against Europe, against US, against Israel. So when she says she's pro-peace, I guess she doesn't want to take a stand, and she probably sympathizes, I suppose, more with Russia, more with Palestine, probably. But of course, she's the one who needs to answer these questions. I'm just speculating. I don't think Joanna was like a base member of ADN or a founder. She was put now there as a figurehead because she's very popular, right? She's very visible to be like their leading candidate. So she could have a party to run with, and they could have a strong candidate. So I'm not sure how aligned she is with their core positions.
Okay.
But they were very pro-Israel when they answered to Alpi.
Yeah. We have 10-15 minutes, and we haven't said a word about our good friends of the far left. Luciano, I will give you the honor to praise the far left when it comes to Israel. So be kind.
I like the be kind. I think I don't want to attack anyone. I don't need to be unpolite to anyone. It's very simple. They have ideology, and they need to please the ideology they have. And it's amazing for me because like Trotsky was Jewish. Marx is a Jewish descendant, and many Jewish people have been part of the communist and socialist parties all over the world. They forget about that. It's funny for me. But then, it's very clear to the agenda of the left, actually, they need to catalog Israel, and they use this as a brand, actually. Like you see, like I'm fighting for the minorities, I fight for the weak, for the poor people, and like we're leading that we are the people with the voice of the weaks, and the Palestinian people is the best brand for them now. This is the present moment, to use kafi as, and to use like the red and black and like all these colors they use, and the red, like to use the watermelon and all these things. I think they have two things here. One actually is one way, good way actually to promote themselves. This is the truth, like, and this is the only thing they can do, is to use people too, like to promote themselves. By the way, I must to say also by the immigrants, like that's very clear. They want to bring more people here to have like more people to vote for them. This is very clear, because then like we say we want to organize things, and it's very clear also, if someone don't want to organize something, is because he's not work or because he's make a profit of it. It's very clear. And the second thing here, and for me it's very interesting, it's like how actually, on these days, Israel have like it's framed as like a white supremacy country, So it's go like against all the values of the left, and it's not truth, like I'm not want to explain about that now, but it's very easy also, like actually to frame Israel in all these things as apartheid and like far right, and talk about PP and all these things. And so we see clearly actually, like from the beginning to the end, actually they had no one support us. This is the first thing. But the second thing, actually, do you have a clear persecution about that? I must say something about the center right or the center, okay? At least they don't have ideology against Israel and against the Jews, at least. So if you don't please them, like in any kind of, way to promote them, or they shift the ideology of them, like because is please like actually the target of them in different ways, they're not gonna continue to persecute us. And very clearly, actually, all the left, doesn't matter each party, all the parties actually can say very clear the support to BDS. You can see very clear actually the meetings they going to, like all these meetings pro Palestine. I don't have problem with that, but the thing is, like when they end the speech of them, say like Palestine we will win, like the genocide of Israel and all these things. I think you don't have even space to talk about it. Like it's totally out of any kind of discussion about like to vote to any kind of these parties. And it's funny for me as something else, like how actually until these days, okay, why you don't like I must say something. Sonia, I really understand you, like when you talk about like the way Shega speaks, okay? But also I need to say to Romeo, like it's very annoying that when people don't take actions, the people don't have, like any kind of opinions,
That's just
and it's
annoying.
very
Can be
annoying.
hypocritical, no? If they say something
It's
and
very
don't do
annoying.
anything, or the
So,
opposite.
but I must say, like, so also, like, we need to be fair to everyone. If you're seeking for peace, you're seeking for anti-violence, and it means for everyone. But it's in everything in your life. So if you have rights for everyone, you need to have rights for everything. But what I want to
Luciano,
say is about the Communist Party. Okay, it's funny because they use the right actually to do panels. Okay, and it says, oh, is a propaganda politica, is like it's a political like a propaganda. So actually they're not promoting themselves. I don't care to see the face of Marx, like, or Lenin. I don't care about that, like no problem. But then what they do huge panels about Palestine and say
When you say
Palestine
panels, you mean
out
outdoor signs,
out of the but
billboards.
painted
political billboards.
painted. They paint like huge walls, like huge walls all over
Yes.
the city with faces of like a
Graffiti.
terrorist. They place like people with Kalichnikov, like phrases in Arabic and everything. And what they place the symbol of the Communist Party and the youth party of the Communist Party to do so to say, "What? Oh no, you can take this down." So I think it's like it's the crazy thing you can have on these days actually, like because you don't have any kind of fair in like in the play what they playing. All the advertisings they doing. I have advertisings here, and they say like the um the intifada is the only solution. And like, what? How you can print with this your money? It's also public money in the end, because they are part of the government. They need to understand that. People don't really realize that.
But
Like,
Lucian,
but this is
but,
finished, and I think people must also actually to have strong opinions and say, no, you're wrong. You can't do that. You believe in your beliefs. You have your ideology. I don't have a problem in that. But then when you choose one to cheers up and say, like, oh, this is my group. You are out of my group. But more than that, I will do everything to persecute you and destroy everything you do. Oh, so it's very wrong actually. And how actually give space for these parties in Portugal? It's for me, it's not logical. So sometimes, sorry to say that, I prefer the peixeirada of Chega, and then in the
but it's
end,
not a
if they
question
do
of
anything for
peixeirada.
me,
I'm
but
sorry, Luciano, but it's not a question of peixeirada. It's not the way they speak. Do you know that many deputies from Chega face legal process because of violence, domestic
NPS,
violence,
and
corruption? Did you know?
what is the situation you have now? But we're talking about the left. So I need to say, like, so totally, like, for me, it's like nothing to talk with them. Even like no any kind of dialogue we can have with them, because the only thing they can say to you is like, you are the racist, you are white, you are the apartheid, everything. It's like always pointing to you, all these things. So they are allergic, they have allergy to facts, and they don't know how to actually dialogue. And it's funny for me, because dialogue, for sure, to have a kind of confrontation, because you need to give argumentation for that. The only thing they know is a violence. Sorry to say that. I don't see any party destroying anything. They destroying things in the city. They doing graffitis everywhere. They throwing like paint in public monuments. And people don't say anything, but then they can talk again and again and again and again about Chega. People don't see the violence of these people. People don't see actually how actually they are unfair with Portugal.
Can you
But no,
can you
and then
conclude?
how they save
It's already
themselves
90
20
minutes.
25 of April, and then and again, because if you don't have the left, we don't have a revolution here in this country. Really, come on, it's time actually
Luciano,
to change.
Luciano, can you conclude? If
You
you
are
might say.
Brazilian.
I
Also,
conclude.
Luciano, you should see how do they speak about immigrants and the names they call to many of them. You should see that and hear that. Because as a Brazilian too, I think you wouldn't like that.
We will do a separate podcast on relationships
And
between
on
Portuguese and
racism.
Brazil. I promise. With Marco consent, I promise we will do a separate conversation on that. Okay, just to finalize, I want all of you. Okay, let's forget all these useless politicians. You guys are way more noble than all of them. So I want you in 2 minutes, each of you, to tell what are you doing for Israel and how you can encourage someone to start advocating for Israel despite the backlash. But please, 2 minutes, Sónia.
Well, as you said, we have this group, Zion Mission Israel. It's a very small group and humble, but we intend to prepare a march in Lisbon. It is also already scheduled for the 28th September in the Israel Embassy. We'll try to get, reasonable number of people there. And also we make other things. We write letters, we disseminate information through the group's Word of Iron. For instance, I write letters to soldiers in Israel. It's just a humble way of helping out and conscious of these limits.
Okay, word of encouragement for someone who wants to join the forces, but they are hesitant because of the backlash.
Yes, I think that all of our options in life come from our own moral principles. So if you are an ethical person, if you defend justice, if you are not afraid of any kind of reaction about your advocacy, you should first inform yourself correctly and then see that Israel never started a war without a previous provocation, that Israel has the right to have its own state, its own nation, and please just be aware of the facts. Don't be eluded by media or social media. You need to search by yourself. And I think that those conditions, you can be able to choose the right place to stand for.
Good stuff. Luciano.
So actually, we organized the first public protest pro-Israel in Portugal. We print actually a lot of posters and information for people too. Here actually always to have open and true dialogue with everyone. So actually this is the basis of the Jewish Cultural Center and the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, actually is to promote dialogue and faster dialogue between people. So I think the best thing to do, and it doesn't matter where you come from, is actually to be interested in the person in front of you, to understand who are you, what is Israel, what is Judaism, what is the values of Judaism, what is the values of Israel, how actually Israel was made. And then actually just after you have a good actually interaction with Israel and Israelis and Jews and the thing, and have an opinion in the end, because people actually build the ideas with a lot of prejudice sometimes. It's fine. But I think this is the best way actually to do, and you continue to do things. We always open here to support everyone, if it's for peace and any kind of dialogue, we always here for that.
Romeo, last but not least.
Yeah, so in my case, I created a pro-Israel NGO in Portugal and was part of the board for 3 years for the first mandate. This helps, so it's good for people to get together and connect with other people that also support Israel. I'm been mostly active nowadays on social media, mostly on Twitter, where I have visibility to help spread accurate information about Israel and about the Israeli side of the war these days. What I feel people can do if they are scared or not so confident. First of all, they can start by educating themselves, reading news, but also reading history, just learning about historical stuff. I think that's very important. And then maybe trying to connect on a more personal level. Something I feel, so sometimes I don't feel so comfortable sharing stuff on my personal social media, some stuff that is very political, very straightforward. But for instance, if people, they don't want to support Israel, I try to make them think and post things like Hamas has Thai hostages. Why does Hamas have Thai hostages? If you don't care about Israelis, can you at least care about Thai hostages? If you don't care about Jews, what about the Druze children that were in the playground and they were bombed from Lebanon? Why are Arab children being bombed by Hezbollah, by the Lebanese? Will you care about these children? So I post these things that are not directly so anti-Palestinian or pro-Israel, try to make people think that this kind of hateful ideologies, they affect everyone in Israel, regardless of ethnicity, even outside Israel, right? Even Palestinians that are confused as Israelis get attacked, or Palestinians that are confused as Jews. So I try to raise this awareness without giving people space to just be anti-Israel and just making it political, because people should think more, a little bit more on the human side of it. But yes, it's very tough sometimes. I got some nasty messages on social media, and also after October 7, I was getting so many videos and pictures from the massacre in Israel that it was so awful. It was so hard. I had to get away. I couldn't even listen to Hebrew music or Hebrew for some weeks because it just reminded me of the screams from people in the massacres. So I had to take a little bit of a step back. But then, if you don't feel comfortable, you take a step back and then you come back when you feel more comfortable.
I'm sure you are already recovered and you are ready for the Eurovision. I know you are a big fan of that.
I'm being
competition.
accused of doing
Marco,
propaganda on Eurovision Facebook groups from Portugal, just because
Marco,
I post nice things about Israel.
Any final words from you? I know you're not going to say anything about Eurovision, but about what we discussed here.
Eurovision, you can't miss the Eurovision. Come on, the quality of the music gets better as the years pass.
And you know, the Portuguese people gave 12 points to Israel last year, as
Very
did
good.
all the Western Europe.
That
And
was
this year
due
we'll do
to-
the same.
I know. Very good, very good. I'm very impressed. You. No, I don't know what I can really say beyond what I've said. I think you have to get people to think. Those who can be, let's say, recovered, because some people have reached a point of no return. But I'd like to think that the majority are amenable to reason and to logic. So very often in my job, what I do, without trying to be too political, of course, as a tour guide, because you're not there to brainwash people, but to show people the country. But inevitably, they will ask you certain questions. So basically what I do is I get them to ask themselves questions, okay? Question perhaps some of those things that had sort of solidified in their mind, and very often people will change once they start to join the dots, because very often they won't join the dots. They act on impulse. Very often they're Pavlovian impulses. They do get one side of the story. That has been the case for decades now. So one has to try and open things up again and to question some of those assumptions on which they have based their arguments. I think on a personal level. Then on a grand scale, one can't leave the squares and the streets to these people. The Palestinists lobby, the Palestinists rent a crowd. Unfortunately, fear is detrimental. You have to stand up. You have to stand up.
So at the beginning of this podcast, I mentioned that I didn't have a dog in the fight when it comes to political parties. And the situation didn't change. All I have at home, as people know, people follow me on social media, it's a cat called Hanukkah. So if it happens that I find that envelope with the voting paper, all I do is I give it to the cat to toy with, because I don't find any other usage. So that's my conclusion for today. But I thank you for the insights. I agree with all of you in certain aspects, but as usual, I will surround myself with the cats and wait for a better opportunity when it comes to politicians. And next Wednesday, Marco, we are going to be talking about free speech. And by the way, without free speech, we couldn't have the conversation we had today with all the disagreements and misalignment. So let's highlight free speech as a crucial element of the Western society and remind everyone that there are people out there who want to dismantle. And those are the fanatics that are coming all the way from the Arabic road. So that's my final words for today. If you guys enjoyed the chat, please press those 3 buttons below. Award us with a thumbs up. That will express your satisfaction. If you know someone who haven't watched the conversation and are willing to watch it later on, because it's going to be stored on YouTube, share. We are happy to get the audience after the fact. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so, because that's a great way to make sure that this content is distributed. So I want to thank you again for the insights and all the best for your personal ventures when it comes to Israel and all the others. Take care.
Thank you so much
Thank
for the
you.
invitation. This was great.
Obrigado.
Até logo.
Até logo.